Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the channel. I'm still James. I've still got my red hat, which can only mean one thing. It's time for another Sunday school video, so let's get right into it. You may remember from last week that we have started a new series. It's based on the 66 books of the Bible song, and each week we're going to be going through some more books of the Bible to help you learn a little bit more about them, get a better feel for them, and help you learn that song as well. So if you haven't already heard it, go listen to it now. If you have already heard it, wait till the end of the video, then go and listen to it again so it's in your head all day, and I'll remind you again at the end, don't you worry. So today we are going to be going through the next 5 books of the Bible. Amy kindly did the first ones for us last week, and today we will be going through Joshua, Judges, Ruth, almost forgot, and then 1st and 2nd Samuel. And is that more one-word explanations and memories of them, I hear you ask? Of course, I'll give you that as well. So we'll be going in, starting with Joshua. So, Joshua, we'll start with our first word, so you can see it as you go through, and that is going to be conquers. Now, not the autumnal nut, but to defeat, conquers, conquered, to defeat. And that is because for the first 12 chapters of this book, Joshua is essentially general of Israel, and they conquer the people who are in Canaan, and they defeat over 30 armies to take over Canaan. And in doing this, they discover some valuable lessons. And those are that victory comes through faith in God and obedience to what he says. So having faith in God and listening to what God says. And after they've won Canaan, there's then peace in the land, and they then split and divide up the land between God's people. And that is where we move into Judges. Keyword for Judges then. You might think Judges going to be all about judges. Wrong. No, we're calling this one cycles. Not like a bike, but like a water cycle. You might have learned about water cycling in school, how you get rain from the sky and it falls down onto the ground and goes into rivers, and then it goes along the rivers into bigger areas of water like seas and oceans, and then it evaporates back up from the oceans back into the sky and forms clouds, and then rains into the rivers, and all around and round and round. That is how the water cycle works. Well, that is what the book of Judges looks like. So we've seen at the end of Joshua, there was peace in the land of Israel. Now, Israel started sinning, and every time they would sin, God would discipline them from foreign oppression. So, yes, and then the people would cry out to God. They'd say, "We're sorry, help us." So God would send somebody to help them and would help them out. And after that, the people would go, probably don't need God anymore, back into sin. And then around and around and around. And that happened 7 times in the book of Judges, that they fell into sin, God disciplined them, the people said they were sorry to God, and God helped them out, and that happened 7 times. So that is the cycle we're looking for in Judges. And where do the judges come in? Well, towards after these cycles, God sends leaders, judges, to come and help the people. Now, they're people, you might have heard of some of them, such as Deborah or Gideon or Samson. You might remember some of them that you might have learnt about before. And they're, the people God sent as leaders or judges to them. And now we're going to take a little bit of a break for the next book from sort of the history of Israel as a whole. And we go into a smaller one. Now it's Valentine's weekend, isn't it? So we're going to move and look at a love story. So, as I say, Ruth is a love story, and that is going to be our key word. I'm going to cheat a bit. I'm going to use 2 words, love story. You could just put love in there if you just wanted one, but I'm going to have love story. So this is because Ruth is a young widow, which means her husband had died, and she moved to a new land with her mother-in-law and sister. Now they were there, and whilst they were there, Ruth became married to a man called Boaz, and he was something called a kinsman redeemer. Now that may not be something you've heard before. You may have heard the word redeemer before. There may be somebody else in the Bible you've also heard referred to as a redeemer. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's pointing to something that happens a lot later on in the Bible. We'll see. But yes, that is what he's a kinsman redeemer. He saves their family. Now, there's maybe another hint to somebody you've called a redeemer later, but somebody who saves somebody. Who knows? Maybe we'll see it later on. But it's Ruth can be a strange one because God is not mentioned at all in Ruth. Now, you may think the Bible is all about God, it's all about Jesus. Why is it not mentioned? But it is alluded to. If you don't know the word alluded, it means the whole book sort of points to it. It's all pointing to God, and it's how God can intervene in just the smallest of lives. It's not just on a large, grand scale that God intervenes, it's that he intervenes in every one of our lives, and in this case, it is that of the life of Ruth. Now, next book, we're on to back to Israel, because surprise, surprise, after the rest of them, they mess up again. And we're going to go to the book of 1 Samuel. Now, you may think, 1 Samuel, let me guess, here's the word for this one going to be Samuel, James? No, it's not. This one is going to be Saul. This is because after the judges and the last judge Samuel, Israel wanted a king. Like other lands had, they thought we want one as well. And this is where Saul came in, because Saul was appointed king. Now, Saul was not a very nice man, and he, most importantly, did not follow God. He was not interested in what God had to say and did not want to follow him. So God removed Saul, and 1 Samuel also brings in King David, or David at the time, he's not king yet. And this is a man who is after God's heart and is following God. Now we see David anointed as king. Saul then tries to have David killed, so David has to flee, and then eventually Saul dies and David can come back and begin his reign as king, which is where we then lead to 2 Samuel. And is this one going to be called Samuel Ivor James? No, this one is going to be based on David, because 2 Samuel is fundamentally David's life story. So David rules over Israel, and he rules over a united Israel, and they refer to him as Israel's greatest ever king, and he's referred to as a man after God's own heart. And that is the most important thing, and the secret to his success, if you will, is that he was a man who wanted to do God's will. He wanted to do what God wanted. Now, he, like everyone else, did sin, and that eventually leads to his downfall and the unrest in Israel that occurs. And if you want to know what else happens, then you will have to come back next week and find out. Because whoever is speaking next week will bring you the next few books of the Bible. Now, hopefully you've noticed today there's been, similarly to last week, there's been a theme going through, and that has been that when people have done what God wanted, they have prospered and they have been at their best. Especially in Israel's case, when they didn't do what God wanted, they struggled and they suffered. But when they did do what God wanted, and similarly when David did what God wanted, then Israel prospered and they were a happy nation and they were a prospering nation. So I do hope you've enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Sorry, I'm not done. I forgot. I said I was going to remind you, and I will. Please do go and listen to the Books of the Bible song again. Go and learn it. Go and sing it around the house. I'm sure the people you live with will be really, really pleased about that. They'll really enjoy it because it's a nice catchy tune and everyone can have a bit of a dance around to it. I am finished now though, so bye bye.